Hello there guys. Today we are going to Scarif for my build of this 1/12 scale Shoretrooper from Bandai. Like most of us, my stash is probably a bit too big and I've been trying to make some space recently. So I've been trying to pick on a few of the kits which have slightly bigger boxes and slightly lower build times. And these Bandai figure kits are great examples of that. They're snap together kits, so the build time is quite low, but the engineering is so precise that they're still really good quality. They're also pre-coloured plastic, so most of the time you don't need to paint very much, if anything. But they also give a very nice result, I find. Here's a great example where the helmet is composed of two halves. And although there's a bit of a line visible at the back there that you might want to sand or fill, those parts are going together in such a way that it's really difficult to take them apart if you get something wrong. So you can't really test fit any parts on a Bandai kit because you can't get them apart again. And again in that head you can see we've got the majority of the head in that light tan plastic, the sort of voice mouth part there in black, and then a sort of translucent black piece which will go in for the eyes, which I will add later. Anyway, since there's not much for me to say, I shall leave you in some peace and quiet while I build up this Shoretrooper. So as you can see, I've built up the Shoretrooper sub-assemblies there, keeping the legs, the midriff and the chest and arms separate. That's really just to prevent any damage and to help with the painting and weathering that I'm going to do. We do get a decal sheet of markings, and in these Bandai kits you get a sticker sheet as well, which is maybe easier for younger modelers to use. I'm going with the painted option, so instead of putting this decal here on the side of the waist, I'm going to mask that off and paint it with Tamiya XF19, I think it was. No, it wasn't. 19 is Sky. It's Tamiya light blue. I forget what colour it was now. But here it is. I painted the shoulder pad in that light blue, and the arm piece was already in red plastic, but I painted it red to make it look a bit better. And then the chest piece in the same light blue. That looks quite good once it's gone together, and then what I typically do is use a matte varnish, in this case VMS matte varnish, to bring the plastic down to the same level of intensity as the matte paint. Maybe with some other Stormtrooper figures you might want to use a semi-gloss varnish because the white tends to be a bit shiny, but I feel like in this environment, the sandy environment, the matte will work better. The Bandai figure kits do typically come with a small square base to mount the figures on, but I wanted to use something slightly different. So I took this slice of wood, which I took from my Christmas tree about 2 years ago now. It's had plenty of time to dry out, so hopefully it's not going to warp anymore. And I wanted my figure standing on this with some kind of sort of greeblie standing next to him. Some kind of piece of technology that looks sort of futuristic, but is sort of an unknown function. So I rummaged through the spare parts box, found a couple of pieces here. I figured this kind of cylinder shape would make a good sort of, transmitter of some kind. And then I found these other random pieces which could fill those gaps. This orangey piece here is a piece of suspension from a Tiger, I think it is. The base there is a stowage bin from a turret. I'm not sure which tank, I can't remember. And the top piece there is one of the spare gun turrets from the 1/350 scale Prince of Wales. And then I found this barrel or breech from some kind of gun. I don't know what this is from, but I thought this would make a great aerial as well if I tidied it up a bit. And I think in true Star Wars fashion, because of course the original models for the films were kit bashed, I have produced something there that looks fairly decent. I don't know why, but just building this gave me so much joy. It only took about 45 minutes, but I was really pleased with the results. It just really made me happy. Got a Tiger exhaust there at the, or was it a Panther exhaust? I can't remember now. At the rear of that taller aerial. Yeah, it was just all good fun. I'm going to put some acrylic terrain paste down on the base, so to protect the wood from the moisture in that, I put a sheet, a circle of styrene there, just to try and keep it away from the wood. I use this AK terrain paste. I use it all the time, I use it for everything. I'm not a big believer in, this is dry ground and this is natural earth and this is beach sand and this is desert sand. I use more or less the same paste for everything, to be honest with you. And I'm just putting the painted greeblie directly into that terrain paste. The terrain paste will get painted, but it won't matter if the greeblie gets a bit of sand on it as well, sand coloured paint on it as well. In fact, that's probably desirable. Once the paste has started to dry for a while, I used the figure to put some footprints in there and to mark out where the figure would stand. But I'm not actually keeping the figure permanently attached to the base. I also took this opportunity to sprinkle some fine sand over the terrain paste. Once everything was dry, I gave the base an airbrush, firstly with Tamiya XF59 Desert Yellow. That was a bit dark, a bit brown, so then I used some buff to lighten things up. I still wasn't super happy with it, so I went to these two pigments, selected the lighter of the two, and applied it to the base. I did also try to apply the pigments to the figure, but even with the matte varnish there wasn't enough bite to make it stick. I didn't want to use any kind of odourless thinner or enamel thinner because Bandai plastic is notorious for cracking and breaking when exposed to that kind of thinner. So instead I first of all went for an old school dry brushing technique, so some white paint in this case, dry brushed all over the model to highlight the details on the edges. And of course, although white is very bright, because we're putting it on in such small amounts, it doesn't really look out of place. I then took a Vallejo black-brown acrylic and did some very, very fine sponge chipping around some of the edges of the armour and the individual plates and so on. Because I can't use an enamel wash due to the plastic's sensitivity to the thinners, I had to use an acrylic wash instead. I took this black-brown Vallejo paint, thinned it with water, and because the paint doesn't really flow super well compared to an enamel, I couldn't really do a pin wash, so instead I decided to effectively sludge the paint all over the model. And then wipe it up and wipe any excess off using some cotton buds. And there is enough bite in that matte finish that it does maintain some of the paint and just give a sort of slightly grimy, dirty look to the figure. Finally, a palm leaf, which is from a paper palm leaf set that I have had for a long time. And with that, my Bandai Shoretrooper was complete. There you go guys, that was my build of the Bandai Shoretrooper in 1/12 scale. Just a quick video, a fairly simple kit, but still quite good fun to build, and I really enjoyed that scratch building actually. That's really inspired me to scratch build and kit bash a few other bits and pieces. I've got lots more projects in the pipeline, including quite a few that I've started but not finished yet, so I hope to see you in a future video. Of course, I want to say thank you to you for watching, and special thanks to my Patreon members and YouTube supporters for their ongoing support of the channel. It is hugely appreciated. Thank you very much, guys. If you enjoyed this video, there are plenty more Star Wars videos on my channel, and if Star Wars is not quite your thing, there are plenty of other videos as well, and you can see some recommendations for those in the screen that follows. Until next time, thanks again for watching, and have fun modelling.